Hello everyone, I'm back. This is Vernon with Chasing Time Travelers, Part 16. We're in the United States and we went through part of Washington, D.C. And I mainly want to explain to you about who I think the hero twins are. I think they're actually the founding fathers of America, in quotes, in the founding fathers. So let me make a long story long. So at the Mesoamerican meeting in 2018, one of the scholars posted this, and I forget who it was, but they said that when Mayans are presenting mirrors, they put a border around the thing, and that's how we know it's a mirror. I'm gonna make this sound like I'm smarter than I am, but so what? Why not? So let's consider the sarcophagus of Lord Pakal. See, it's got a border around it. Now, this is not the original one. This is a copy that's in the museum in Chetumal down at the border of Mexico and Belize. And but it's a good copy. It looks, just like the thing. And so I duplicated it because, well, let's see, a mirror means duplication, right? So I duplicated it and found nothing. So here's a different image without the border, but it's the, still the sarcophagus of Pakal. I duplicated it, and I'm starting to get something in the middle, sort of like a tree, if you look at the bottom half of the middle. Now notice that both of those guys are facing the same way. So I'm going to reverse one of these. Looks like I reversed them both, actually. And so now they're facing away from each other, and it looks like there's a tree in the middle with sort of an evil-looking bird, right? Look carefully. You'll see his eyes, his beak. He's got fangs. He's got tail feathers. Looks like his wings are sort of like he's, flexing his muscles. He's got some sort of animal-looking crown on his head. And when I saw that guy, I said, well, gee, that looks like some kind of devil bird. So I Googled devil bird and Mayans, and it gave me Vucubquaq'ush and the Maize God Twins. So it made me suspect I was onto something. Then I did another thing with that image. I reversed it again. Now the two guys are facing each other, and look, there's still an image in the middle, but it looks like a different mean bird. This one's mouth is wide open. He's got his talons splayed. He's got looks like it could be a jaguar crown on his head. Almost looks like a skeleton, right, with some fangs and little wings. And my theory is that what they're showing us on the left is Vucubquaq'ush, also known as the bird demon, and his, in quotes, son, Zipacna, on the right, who's the son of the bird demon, which would mean that on the bottom, well, I'm sorry, let's go back to the left. That means obviously they're twins because I duplicated the image, right? So they have to be identical twins. But if you look at the left image, those would be the Maize God Twins who were having conflict with Vucubquaq'ush. And on the right, see, it's sort of a younger looking bird demon thing. Those would be the hero twins having conflict with Zipacna. And lo and behold, there actually is an image from ancient Izapa in the Yucatan Peninsula, and it's of Vucubquaq'ush, the devil bird, in a tree. Actually, looks like he just fell out of it, and but he's having conflict with the hero twins. So I don't think the way I put that image together was, well, for me it was a lucky guess, but it's consistent with the archaeological findings. Now let's think about Animal Farm for a moment. Animal Farm is allegorical. When you first start reading it, you're thinking, oh yeah, this is about cows and pigs and Snowball and all those guys, and then you realize it's about global politics. Well, that's what I think the communication method was for the Mayan creation myths. When they talked about the hero twins, I don't think they were talking about two guys, twin brothers who had the ability to chop each other to bits and resurrect each other and all this other wild stuff that no one could ever possibly do, no human, right? I think they were talking about um, George Washington, John Adams. That was, I think they were Hunahpu and Eshbalank, where George Washington would be Hunahpu and John Adams would be like his sidekick Eshbalank. So what I'm basically saying is that the creation myth is about the creation of America, not the creation of the world. And I showed you the ball court, where obviously that's not the foundation of Earth. In Mayan mythology, when they talk about all that the creation myths, they say that it takes 3 rivers to get to the place of fear. Now, the place of fear was the backstory quickly is the Maize God Twins were playing on that big ball court I showed you, and then in quotes the Lords of Xibalba said they were making too much noise, and they challenged them to a game, and then the Maize Gods, the Maize God Twins went to Xibalba, the place of fear, and where the Lords of Xibalba tricked them and killed them. But out of that lineage, it's a long story involving things that are impossible, like a woman spitting into a guy spitting to a human head spitting into a woman's hand and impregnating her, right? So obviously it's not talking about real people, but she gave birth to the hero twins, and but to get to Xibalba, and this is the point I'm not making fast enough, to get to Xibalba, according to Mayan mythology, you had to take 3 rivers. The first river was said to be full of scorpions. The second river was said to be full of blood. And the third river was said to be full of pus. Well, if we think about Washington, D.C., and suppose hang on, sorry. Who were the early Americans afraid of? Because remember, Xibalba is a place of fear. They were afraid of the British. So how about this? That to get to Xibalba or England from Washington, D.C., the first river you take is the Potomac, and it's got freshwater scorpions. The second, in quotes, river is the Atlantic. When the sun's rising, it's reddish like blood. And the third river is the Thames in London, which is, it makes sense that they would say it's full of pus because it was a very polluted river at the time of the American Revolution. So the place of fear is Parliament. So in the Mayan mythology, in the Mayan creation myths, when they're talking about fearsome statues, I think they're talking about the Magna Carta statues. And when they talk about that hot whittle bench where you sit down and it gets so hot and you jump up, I think they're talking about Parliament, where the parliamentarians are sitting on benches and they jump up to argue. And when the Mayans talk about Vucubcaquix, the bird demon, they're not talking about a bird demon. They're talking about King George III. Well, why would they call him a bird demon? Because King George III suffered from porphyria. And at the time, porphyria was attributed to demon possession. So if you look on the left here, that's King George when he was, in quotes, possessed by a demon. But on the right, that's him when he was not. And the son of the bird demon, I think that's Lord Cornwallis. He's the one called Zipacna, and there's a long story we'll talk about soon with the Maryland 400. And so in Mayan mythology, when they're talking about right, so the hero twins go to Xibalba, and they're involved in all these in quotes houses. There's cold house and hot house and all this stuff. I think they're talking about the American Revolutionary War, where cold house is Valley Forge. Hot house is the burning of Norfolk. Knife house is the Battle of Bunker Hill and the Bunker Hill Sword. Sorry, this bat's moving. I didn't mean for that. Bat house would be, you see the bar shot on the left? They would stuff that in cannons and fire the cannon. I assume they looked like bats when they flew through the air and knocked masts off ships and cut people in half. And then there's the story of the Maryland 400, which is actually in mythology the Mayan 400, and it's long story, and it involves this pillar, and there's the pillar, but it's in Park Slope, Brooklyn. That would take a while to explain about the Maryland 400. Um, then there's the apotheosis of Hunahpu. Well, I think they're talking about the apotheosis of George Washington, which is to give him godlike status. So that's, I'll go to the next slide so you can see it better. So here's the apotheosis of George Washington. He's sitting in the clouds. He's got some women next to him, blowing horns and all this, and all of these mean something. So thank you for listening to part 16. When we come back, we'll talk about you'll see the White House, you'll see the Vietnam Memorial, and more.